Hello and welcome to Season 12, Episode 9 of the Data Governance Podcast. And this week I am having a conversation with my very good data friend, Shahnaaz Nazerali-Larsen. And I've known Shahnaz for a number of years now, and I always love our conversations about all things, but especially data. And it's an absolute pleasure to have her on the podcast so that you too can get to hear some of her great advice. So, hello and welcome to another episode of the Data Governance Podcast. And I am so thrilled today. I am joined by my really good friend, Shahnaaz Nazerali-Larsen. And we met years ago when we were both working for the same consultancy, Platon. And, just sometimes you hit it off and find a kindred spirit. And I think we just knew we were destined to be friends from the first moment we met. And then we discovered we both did data governance. So what could be better? So Shahnaz is a seasoned data governance leader with over 30 years of hands-on experience driving data strategy, data quality, literacy, and management for global organizations like Deloitte, Cognizant, and Platon, where I said we met. And Shahnaz has shaped data governance programs for major clients in sectors ranging from infrastructure to consumer goods and life sciences, positioning data as a strategic differentiator. I can't say that one very easily. I haven't had enough coffee yet. Her deep expertise and pragmatic leadership make her a trusted authority in data management and data governance. And so it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast, Shahnaz.
Thank you, Nicola. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
It just feels a bit strange that this time we're having a good old chat and letting other people listen in.
Exactly.
So just so to help my listeners get to know you a bit better, I think I hinted a bit in your introduction, but how long have you been working in data governance? But more interestingly, how did you actually get into it? Because it's not always considered a usual career choice.
Yeah, it's a good question, and like you already said, I've been working with this area for 30 years, and I've come to realize that for my age, I am actually a part of a very, very small group of people who actually studied this subject formally at university, and since then I have been working with it long before it had the name data management or became fashionable, right? And back in those days, we called it management information systems. And we were building decision support systems, but now it has the word data management and data-driven decision making, all those good words, right? When it comes to data governance specifically, I have probably been working with it about 21, 22 years, around the time I met you, or a little before, I guess. And that was also a time before it was a buzzword and before it was a necessity, right? So looking back, I think it is actually quite wild to see how central data has become for every organization today. But for me, it has been my field from day one, in a way.
I think that's brilliant because that sounds like that was a conscious decision of yours. So you actually had that amazing foresight. I think myself, as you know, and many other people, it was an accidental happening later on in their career. But I think it's brilliant that everything you've done has built on your experience.
Yeah, because I have, it's actually funny that you mentioned that, right? Because I've always been drawn to that combination of data and people. And then I realized, okay, that's data governance later on. But funny, at university, when I was studying, my career counselor, that was back in the 90s, right? And my career counselor, she could not recommend any profession for me. I took a computer science major with a business major, and she didn't have any career advice for me because she said, according to my personality test, I loved working both with people and computers. And back then, there was no job title or no job profile that I would fit into, right? And today it is literally the definition of data governance, that space in between, the blend of understanding how data behaves, but also understanding human behavior, right?
I think that is so true. And wouldn't you just love to go back and find your career advisor and go, look, my job existed.
I made it, actually.
Excellent. So, I mean, I am unduly biased because you're my friend, but you are very successful at data governance. And what characteristics do you think that you have that make you particularly successful at data
Yeah.
governance?
Yeah. So, like I mentioned also, right, it was, I have been able to always, always been able to sit in both the worlds, the business world and the technical world, and creating that translation and the bridge in between them, right? And that I think is really essential for data governance. But going to my background, right, I have lived in three different continents. That makes me conscious or aware of how culture shapes behavior. This is very, very true for data management topics in that
Mm.
sense. An organization's culture shapes how its data's practices are executed. It influences the employee's behavior towards data in exactly the same way as a culture shapes people's behavior, right? So being aware of that is helps enormously.
I love that.
And
I think there's been so many. I mean, you must have seen similar kind of things to me where actually, what they're trying to do is the right thing. It always is if you're trying to do data governance. But that if you ignore the culture, and I love your point, is it's not even just think about culture and people. It does change from country to country, doesn't it?
exactly.
And
Yeah.
you've traveled and lived in so many different places that you're very experienced at all of
Yeah.
that.
No, but it does, and it always affects. That is why there is not one size fit all of way of doing data governance, right? You need to govern the people, but then in the end, it is about changing the organization, changing the behaviors of these people so that you capture the good data, the right data to enable the business further, right? So you very rightfully saying that, and it is. I mean, I think you have also experienced it. How many times you have heard about, oh, this is how we have been doing it for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. Why change now, right?
Absolutely. I had exactly that. I was on a webinar yesterday and somebody said, how do we sell it? Or no, how do we make the business doing it? And when we don't make them do it, we sell it to them. We explain that just because you've been successful for 20 years
Yeah.
and didn't have data governance doesn't mean that you don't need it now. You might have been successful in spite of your data. And now, of course, we get more data being created faster than ever before.
Yeah, but I like what you just said about explaining, right? We need to explain to them why we are doing it, why it's important. And actually, up to today, after all those years, I still love the moment that I see this aha in the business users or user side when they realize the value and power of having the right information at the right time in the right format. But not only that, also understanding and recognizing that they play a role in enabling that. So it's not just that it magically happens, but they are a crucial part of it. And that moment helps me at least, or makes all the convincing, the influencing, the negotiating, all of that. It makes it worth it for sure.
Oh, it does. It's really rewarding, isn't it? When
Yes,
you get them to suddenly go, oh, so data's important. And you go,
exactly,
yes,
exactly.
it's brilliant. So I know when we get together, we have lots of things we talk about, and
Yes,
obviously we're trying to keep my podcast to its usual length. But I don't know,
fine.
is there a particularly memorable data governance experience that sticks out for any particular reason that you'd be willing to share?
Uh, uh, the memorable data governance story.
Yes.
I have to know. Yes, I don't know if I would call it memorable, but maybe I can talk about the biggest challenge
Oh, do
I have had.
yes.
And I think that it is very interesting that even today, after all these years, the toughest challenge is convincing the executive leadership that data governance matters. I
Mm.
mean, we are in 2025, it's almost 2026. I don't think, or I strongly believe that it should not be data professionals that are still explaining that data is the fourth asset and that needs the same focus and control and strictness as a company's other three assets, which are the financial, the physical assets, or the human assets, right? All of those
Mm.
are controlled or there's a rigidity around it. I maybe not use the word rigid, but you know what I mean. It's not random that things happen, but in the data world, it still becomes random, right? And I think with AI, this gap is become even more clear. So you can simply not get reliable AI outcomes from unreliable data. And all the leaders want AI. They want its benefits. But the governance often is the uncomfortable truth that they would rather skip, right? And maybe to add one real concrete story from my past, I actually had a moment that I'll never forget, right? I guess that was your original question, sorry.
That's it.
Um, it was an executive leader of an organization that I worked at. They came to me and they told me that they want to manage their data properly and better. But, and this is the big cliffhanger,
Yeah.
right? They did not want to change anything. They did not want to change how the people work. They did not want to change how the business operated, but they wanted proper data. I think that that moment for me, it was such a perfect snapshot of what we are experiencing, even the current challenges now, right?
Mm.
Everyone wants the benefits of good data, of AI, of automation, things like that. But very few want to adjust the behaviors and the ways of working that create trusted data in the first place. For me, that moment was very revealing and it was a little bit funny or humorous also, but it reinforced in me once more that data and AI governance is a change journey and that
Definitely.
how deeply we need data and AI literacy at all levels of the organization, not just the top, not just the technical people, but everywhere.
That's very true. So I'm going to have to ask, what did you say to this executive when they said that? I think I would have taken a very sharp intake of breath and been thinking rapidly, what on earth am I going to say?
Well, so part of my core qualities or my core values is honesty, right, and directness, and I cannot avoid that. So I did say that, that that's not possible, right? It's actually very funny because I did say that, that that's not possible because you're asking me to fix something that needs to be fixed in the process. You can't fix it afterwards, right? If
Mm.
your cake is just not tasting good, the good icing on top will not make it delicious or edible in any way. And actually, a month later, the same executive came to me and said he had bought a data management book
Wow.
and had started to read it, but then he thought it was so boring. And I think that is somewhat our data professionals' fault. We make the theory very dry.
Yes.
So it's not fun, but then that is where people like you and me, I think, are important in the business career profession to help people navigate this complex area.
Oh, definitely. And I think that's one of the reasons we get on so well is we're both very pragmatic and practical in how we do data
Yes.
governance. It's not a theoretical thing. This is about what do we need to do to make it work and add value in each
Yeah.
organization. So
Mm.
excellent. Yes, I was going to say, honestly, the number of experiences we've had like that over the years. But it's all
Yes.
good fun. So, as you know, I have a lot of people listen to this podcast who are just perhaps just starting out in data governance.
Mm.
And so I always love it when I have people who are so experienced like you to ask you, is there any particular advice you'd offer to those people that are just starting out in data governance? Because it can be quite challenging, as we both know.
So this is a question I have been asked frequently. I have actually over the past maybe 13 to 15 years, I've had the privilege of mentoring and coaching a lot of the younger talent in the different organizations I have worked with. And maybe to start with, I would say that, okay, when we talk about resources, I always, especially about data governance, I always point them to you.
Oh, thank
I
you.
ask them to follow you. I ask them to read your blogs. I think you have a few free trainings out there. I ask them to just do that. I also have someone that has signed up for your AI pilot trial, and she was just raving about that. I'm
Oh,
not saying this because I'm your friend. I really do that, and you can call these people up and ask them. I also suggest two books, John Ladley on data governance and Robert Siner on non-invasive data governance. I'm actually looking forward to reading your book and add it to my list of recommendations. And of course, for the broader understanding of data management, I refer them to Dama's data management body of knowledge. I think it's a great reference. It covers a lot, or it covers all the data management disciplines, but it is a heavy read. So I don't tell people to start from page one and go page by page, but pick a chapter you're interested, read it, go back to it, revisit it. But of course, always with things like your practical examples, right? And I think that the core advice, or the most important advice that I always tell them, those are on the book side, but I ask them to master the fundamentals. Start with the foundation, learn data modeling techniques. You have courses on that too. That understanding how to structure data helps you think about information, about the systems that this data resides on. And it also helps you think about the AI capabilities or how it's going to be used, right? Then secondly, I would tell them to invest a lot of time in learning organizational change management practices. Because like we've already talked about, data governance is fundamentally about changing how
definitely.
people work. So these, when you read the books, but also understanding the structure, so these two skills, structure and empathy, that will matter even more as AI evolves, right? Because AI will not replace data governance. AI can help us detect issues faster, but it will never, never, never fix the human and process
No.
behaviors that create poor data in the first place, right?
No, I think that's spot on. That is excellent advice, and I think I think it's so key that you're saying you need to understand the fundamentals, but the organizational change is absolutely vital. You
Yes.
can understand the theory, but if you can't actually make it happen in a way
No,
that will be embedded, it's kind of a waste of
no.
effort, isn't it?
No, and that's why I also say, right, theory, and then to you for practical hands-on to combine the two and not just focus on one, right? Because I strongly believe that if you understand people and data, you will be at the heart of where governance is heading.
I think that is an excellent sentence to finish the podcast on. That was fabulous advice, Shahnaz. I always enjoy talking to you,
In
and
here.
it's been an absolute pleasure being able to talk to you so that my listeners can benefit from your wonderful advice as well. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate that.
So, I really do feel that some of these podcasts are me just having a good chat with my friends and you get to listen in. I really hope you enjoyed that conversation with Shahnaz as much as I did. I would urge you to follow her on LinkedIn. She is such a lovely, but more importantly, very practical and experienced person when it comes to data governance. So that's all for this week. Please come back and join me next week because we have a really interesting session where I'm going to be talking to Rasheen McCarthy, who is the founder of Women in Data. Now, you might be thinking, if you're not female, why would you bother listening to that one? But I can promise you it is going to be a really useful, a valuable conversation, and I would urge you to join us next week. I hope I'll see you there.